was a mystery report. Periscopes up, periscopes up. The mystery report. Periscopes up, periscopes up. The mystery report.
When I woke up today, I found a letter. Yeah, lying right there on my vanity. Greetings, gherkins, gherkettes, and gherkolescents. Gherkins of all ages, from 1 to 100. Although, what the hell a 1-year-old would be doing watching this show is beyond me. It's a big audience that we have. So, I just want to, before we get into today's video about the STICKMEN, who you are going to love, I just wanted to say that all the updates that I usually give at the front of the video about the last couple of videos, I've moved to the back of this video so that we can do our best about getting where we're going, although it is often a labyrinthal type move that we do. So if you have any questions or anything, you can see me moving papers about the last videos. They're at the end of this video. Now, if you just want to go right to the part about the STICKMEN, that'll be here at this timestamp. There we go. Right here at this timestamp. That's where all the information about the STICKMEN will be if you want to jump to that. Because this video is going to contain a few side quests and some historical context. But I want you to think of that as a feature and not a bug. I would suggest that you watch all that because you might learn something.
Don't fool around, you're learning.
So let's get rolling with historical context. All right, the STICKMEN were a no-wave band. Now, no-wave was a reaction to the new wave movement. So we're going to talk about new wave.
There was never any such thing as new wave. It was the polite thing to say when you were trying to explain you were not into the boring old rock and roll, but you didn't dare to say punk because you were afraid to get kicked out of the fucking party and they wouldn't give you coke anymore. There's new music, there's new underground sound, there's noise, there's punk, there's power pop, there's ska, there's rockabilly, but new wave doesn't mean shit.
This section right here is for anybody who might be a time traveler, interdimensional being, if you've never heard of New Wave. New Wave, for those who haven't heard of it, was created when Sid Vicious murdered his girlfriend Nancy Spungen. What happened was the music industry was in a complete free fall at that point. Disco was starting to die out, and they had not yet had stumbled upon Quiet Riot's cover of Slade's Come On, Feel the Noise, which kicked off hair metal. So between the death of disco and the birth of hair metal, they needed something to go in there, and all they had was punk. But Sid Vicious had murdered his girlfriend, it was in the papers, and no radio station wanted to have a punk band drop by. They were afraid they would kill the receptionist. So they didn't know what to do, so they rebranded punk as New Wave. So you got that? So it's like the nicer side of punk. Like, no, this isn't punk, this is New Wave. These kids, they went to college, they're all having fun. They won't murder everybody at the radio station. So that is how New Wave got to be New Wave. There's an episode of Chips where they have a New Wave band called Snow Pink. And Snow Pink says, no, we're New Wave, not punk. We're not into all that hatred. By the way, Snow Pink was played by Susan Richardson from my hometown of Coatesville. All right, since no wave is a reaction to the niceification of punk that was New Wave.
Are you really a punk?
Punk? No way. I'm New Wave. Totally different head. Totally.
I'll explain now what no wave was. No wave was very scratchy and atonal. It had elements of funk and jazz. Jazz, and we all need to agree on this, can be pretty damn annoying, but imagine jazz that is purposefully annoying. That's kind of fun. Going to give you a list of no wave bands that you can check out right now. I do want you to check out all these bands. First, James Chance and the Contortions. Teenage Jesus and the Jerks. The Gynecologists. Theoretical Girls. Bush Tetras. Mars. D.N.A. The Mule Molesters. Make sure you check out all those bands except for the Mule Molesters, who I clearly made up because I'm a terrible person. I'm going to hell. Some people will say Sonic Youth are a no-wave band. I say you can't be a no-wave band if you have your own line of clothing. Remember, kids, if your collar doesn't match your rest of your T-shirt, then you're definitely ex-girl. All right, some people will argue that the B-52s were no-wave or Flipper was no-wave. I consider Klaus Nomi, the reason that there is a pink poodle right back there, I consider Klaus Nomi to be no-wave. So it's like what Judge Potter Stewart said about pornography when he said, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Which makes you wonder how often he saw it, but that's the way I feel about no wave. I can say scratchy and atonal, funk and jazz, but sometimes you'll just see something and you'll go, oh, no wave, no wave. Now I'm going to give you a couple things to check out so you can go down your no wave rabbit hole. The first would be a documentary called Kill Your Idols. You want to go look at that, and I'm sure you can find it pretty much everywhere. It might be on YouTube, I'm not sure, but it'll be easy to find. The second is the No New York compilation album, which features a lot of good bands. I think Teenage Jesus and the Jerks are definitely on that, maybe D.N.A. also. You're going to want to look into that one. That was produced by Brian Eno. Brian Eno was in New York City producing the second Talking Heads album. This is one of the few times where the appearance of David Byrne leads to something good. But Brian Eno was in town. He saw some of these no wave bands, and he was really, really impressed. So that's how No New York comes about. There's also an album called New York Noise. Highly recommend that one as well. That's got a lot of great stuff on it. As you're noticing, I'm saying New York a lot, and that's because New York in the 1970s sort of helped forge the no-wave movement. New York in the 1970s was a glorious place. It was filthy. Everybody was out of work. Things were just on fire everywhere. Gerald Ford had told the city to fuck off. So it was my kind of town. And I don't usually say nice stuff about New York. So I would say Debbie Harry had a great thing to say about it. She's like, people used to go, well, why do you live there if it's so dirty and dangerous? And she's like, look, you don't want to live here, don't live here. It was definitely the cheap rents that brought all the weirdos. When all the normal people leave, all the weirdos move in. Also, Son of Sam should get some credit, maybe, for helping the no-wave movement. I think he definitely set the move. So what you're saying right now probably is, all right, so if no-wave is associated with New York, were the STICKMEN from New York? No. The STICKMEN were a Philadelphia band. So this is kind of weird because you have a Philadelphia band performing music that's kind of associated with New York. And at this time, this is going to sound weird to you people. At this time, Philadelphia had an inferiority complex about not being New York City. I know. Now when we live in the Phillyverse now, there are people out in L.A. who are trying to get the Philly accent right so that they can get acting jobs or just be cool at parties. Go, oh, you're from Philly. It's weird. When we think of New York City now, we think about like Elmo being in Times Square. You know what I'm saying? But back then, when you thought about New York City, you thought about like Max's Kansas City. You thought about seeing all these bands and just like having a good time at loft parties, like in one of my favorite movies, Liquid Sky. So back also then in Philly, because this is about the time I moved into Philly, the worst musician I knew, and when I say the worst musician, I don't mean he was untalented with his playing, but he just wasn't very original. He used to always go off about moving to New York. You're like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go up to New York. They'll really appreciate my music. And we'd all be like, yeah, you should move today. Can we help you pack? We'll buy you a matching set of Samsonite luggage. So the STICKMEN, that might have hurt because you're a band not from New York associated with the type of music that is New York-ish. And so what happens is when you see these lists of great no-wave bands, sometimes the STICKMEN aren't on it. Same thing happened to an incredible no-wave band from Philadelphia called the Morphines. So just that is why when you see the list, the STICKMEN are often missing. But we're going to fix that. Okay, we are talking about the STICKMEN from Philadelphia. Not the other STICKMEN. There's a group of people. I think Tony Levine is in them, and they play those Chapman sticks. those weird guitars, and they call themselves the Stickmen? No. This is another group called the Stickmen. The group that eventually would become the Stickmen, because they've been in a bunch of different other bands. They really formed and gelled around 1980. And pretty much as soon as they formed, they began playing the Hot Club. We'll get to the Hot Club in a minute. But they were fronted by guitarist Pete Baker. And I first learned about the Stickmen. Joe went to go see the Stickmen live in, he says, the winter of 81, 82. And he described Pete Baker as James Brown, but more energetic. And I was like, whoa, I need to find out more about this. So the Stickmen made such an impression on Joe and me that I think it's fair to say that had there been no Stickmen, probably there wouldn't have been a Dead Milkmen. We wouldn't have gone on with it. We wanted to be the Stickmen so badly. I used to live in a house called the Hardcore Hilton. This is how much I idolized Pete Baker. One day I woke up and I went to the kitchen and Pete Baker was in my kitchen. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, everybody's Pete Baker from the Stickmen. He's in the kitchen. And poor Pete Baker, because I've been impersonating him for a long time. So I'm like, this is the insatiable point. Time to reach your hot point. Hot point, yeah, stick it quick. I'm jamming like, yeah! And this poor guy's sitting there just trying to eat breakfast in somebody else's home. And I'm impersonating him. Must have been weird for him. I feel bad about that, but I just couldn't help myself. It's Pete Baker's. Come in, touch him. It's like having Jesus in your house. Also, within the Stickmen was Beth Ann Lejam, also Beth Ann, let's just say Lejam, I always call her that, Beth Ann Lejman, Beth Ann Lejman Stack, also known as B.A.L Stack. She was the keyboardist, an incredible musician. She was also in a band called the Heathens, and I will drop in a link to the Heathens. Then I'm giving you the classic lineup here. This is the band. This is everybody who is on the albums, because they had some people. They had different bass players and different drummers, but this is sort of the classic lineup. We had Charles Madden Jr., who did trumpet and sax. Billy Bad Claw Bradfield, bass player, and Jim Menezes was on the drums. So yeah, that's the classic lineup. That's who you're looking for in all these. And I mentioned the Hot Club earlier because as soon as they formed, pretty much like right after, embryonic, they were playing the Hot Club. Now the Hot Club, I just wanted to mention it because it is a legendary Philly venue. It probably deserves its own video. Everybody played at the Hot Club. The Dead Boys played at the Hot Club. Iggy Pop played at the Hot Club. Devo played at the Hot Club. In 1977, I remember a bunch of us sitting around listening to a local radio station because Elvis Costello was playing at the Hot Club, and they were simulcasting the whole thing live. So you could actually hear Elvis's live performance. And it's out there. Just make sure you always check the links section in the description, because a lot of good stuff will be in there, so I'll put that in there. In 1982, the Stickmen released their first LP, and that was the Master Brew, and I'll provide a link to that. It's a must hear. The Master Brew was followed up in 83 by Get On Board the Stickmen. That was an EP. Tragically, we always have to move to the tragic section. Tragically, both Pete Baker and Beth Ann have passed away. Pete left us in 1984, and Beth Ann left us in 2016. Now, I have to cheer you up a little bit after that, so I'm going to tell you something. There is a retrospective out there. So listen up, gherkins. Put on your listening ears. The retrospective of Stickmen recordings was released in 2001. So it was released between the death of Pete and the death of Beth Ann. And it was released by Cuneiform Records. I love a man in cuneiform. And the retrospective is titled Insatiable, and it contains most of the Stickmen's studio recordings. They got some live radio broadcast stuff that was thrown in there, and there was a 20-minute long live video. So if you don't own this album, go now. There'll be a link. Go now to Bandcamp and get this, because if you don't own it, you don't deserve love ever at all. And if you do own it, that means that you're better than everybody else. Not just smarter, mind you. Better. So, I think that pretty much does it for introducing you to the Stickmen. So let's do some updates. All right, first I want to thank Linda for commenting on the Dikuku video and letting us know that they are all doing fine. Yes. Oh, I'm glad to hear that they're all out there and doing fine. And she also included some links to vintage Dikuku songs and footage, and those will appear in the description. I want to thank everyone who posted kind words about Them Are Us Too, and then who also shot over to Bandcamp to get some of their music, as well as music from Serskew. That means a lot to me. When I suggest something and you folks go and check it out, that makes me feel good. And after checking out last week's video, I'm about to make you feel bad again. After checking out last week's video, somebody contacted me to let me know that Lana Del Rey's father, who might be the world's first and only Nepo daddy, actually has released an album, and that album is called Lost at Sea. Sailing, take me away to where I can just push somebody off a boat. If you listen to Lost at Sea, it answers the question, what if Kenny G just decided he was going to play piano? There are all these videos out there. I should maybe put up a link to one of those, of people listening to it and crying. And I'm like, yeah, I cried too, but for a completely different reason. So you might see those. But if you don't say anything mean on the comments to those videos. People they're just listening to Lana Del Rey's father and crying. And somebody in that last video had come up with the term, I was using the term Apple Store rock, but they came up with I think is a better term, summer savings event rock. So from now on, we're going to call that stuff summer savings event rock. So it's not like it's, my son's really into Father John Misty. You go, oh, your son's in the summer savings event rock? Why don't you go put him out in the yard for a while with the dogs? Sure, you might have to mess around with Child Protective Services, but it's better than having to hear that or Lord Huron. And by the way, now I go on. So I had made that last video about all the problems that are out there in alt or indie rock, and I saw another video that said, hey, maybe it's not the AI, maybe it's the music. And I was like, oh, a kindred soul. I was all happy, and I watched it, and no. The person was like, the problem is that everybody's trying to use auto-tune and everything to sound perfect. And here's my favorite, and he's like, here's my favorite band. And his favorite band was a summer sales event type band. And I don't care if people use auto-tune. I don't care what you do, as long as your music's interesting. And that's what I just want to hear, some interesting music. When I hear the Stickmen, I'm like, my God, music can be so interesting. You can make interesting music. Go out, make something that's just so in everybody's face. So, all right, that brings to a close today's video. Next time, we will either be staying in the 80s and traveling across the continent to Los Angeles, or I will be performing a song from Teenage Favorites. This is really an amazing book that I got at Philadelphia AIDS Thrift for $1. In fact, they just wanted to give it to me. And I was like, no, let me at least give you $1. They're like, why would you want this? But I might be doing a track from this in the future. So if not next week might be another They Should Have Been Bigger, or it might be, I might punish you with a track from Teenage Favorites. I'm going to tell you right now, the songs sound like they could be porn titles. It's all, stuff like The Lord Came On To Me, and my personal favorite is Preacher, Teacher, Reacher. Yes, somebody did that. All right, so thanks for paying attention, Gherkins. Please check out the Stickmen. You are going to love them, and I'll see you, hopefully, next week. Thank you very much.
Periscopes up, the best report day. Periscopes up, Periscopes up.